What's up guys, and welcome back to another video covering Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So of course the games are officially out now. Hopefully some of you are playing them, I guess. So today what we're doing actually is talking about Guzzlord. So there'll be slight spoilers here for sort of Guzzlord's story, I suppose you can call it, in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. It's just a sort of lore background. So I'm going to be talking about that today and sort of trying to figure out what's going on. So just prepare yourself for some spoilers there if you don't mind them, but obviously if you do, then go and play the game and come back eventually. So, if you didn't know, Guzzlord's location, I suppose you could say, in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon when you're exploring Ultra Space to catch a Guzzlord, is this place called the Ultra Ruin. Now, you go through, and when you actually come out next to the wormhole, there's actually a guy there. There's a guy just standing there. He's actually wearing a hazmat suit that looks like Guzzlord. It's got the same sort of design on the front of it, so that's an interesting thought for a start. You can talk to him, but we'll do that in a minute, and you can then go through like a pipe and you go out to like a ruined factory, basically is what it is. And it's very interesting because we don't notice the location. It's just like some sort of ruined factory or warehouse, and if you sort of navigate the way down, you'll eventually find Guzzlord eating up loads of trash. So that's one interesting thing. The second interesting thing comes when you look at the music. So the music for Guzzlord's area is actually really creepy. It's like something out of a creepypasta. But the interesting thing comes when you play it backwards, because once you do that, there are sections of the theme or of the music where it's actually I can't remember how to say the name of the town. Howley. I guess Howley is how I'm going to go for it. That city, the first city on Melee, it actually plays that theme. So that's interesting for a start. How does that actually match to Ultra Ruin? Well, if you walk a bit further around the area, there's actually a screen that will turn on from time to time, and that screen shows you a picture of that city, Howley City. It shows you it right there. It seems like it's one of the ones from the original Sun and Moon trailers, basically, but it is a picture of the city. You can see it's blue, colour, the beach, the city in the background. Which again, questions, well, okay, the theme was a hint, but now, of course, we have confirmation that the city actually existed in this world, yes, for a start, and maybe it's related to something near. So the first thing that comes to mind is that this area is a ruined city, ruined Howler City, or ruined Alola in general, because of course you could be on a different part of Alola and have like an advert for the city, for example, but of course the music seems to indicate that you're actually in the city. There's no location like this in the actual city in real life, so it could be the fact that it's an advanced civilization that is like an old version. And this becomes a bit more clear when we actually talk to the guy by the wormhole. There are a few things you can say sort of before or after you talk to him, or you catch Guzzlord rather. So we're going to go over a few things you can ask him and he'll talk about after you've caught Guzzlord. First, you can ask him about Guzzlord just generally, and he'll say, "Guzzlord, oh, you mean Mr. Glutton?" And remember, I think Guzzlord's actual sort of code name was UB Glutton originally, so maybe that links in somewhere. But we're then told his kind has lived on this planet since long before I was even born. They eat anything, and I mean literally anything. Trash, toxic waste, you name it. But their numbers seem to be decreasing these days. So again, this gives us a bit more of a backstory. Okay, so Guzzlord is sort of like native to this planet, for example, maybe. But if we look at Guzzlord's Pokedex entry, we're told that it eats anything and it needs to eat a lot. So gives you a few more ideas. Moving on, you can ask him about a leaking machine, and he says, "Oh, that's a filtering machine to make the dirty water here clean. But one of the pipes broke, so there's a bit of a leak. The water purity level is still pretty high, so it should be safe to drink for now." So obviously the water on this planet area is dirty. You have to purify it to be able to drink it. Of course, you do that in real life anyway, but the fact that there's actually a proper filtering machine for it makes indicates that it's actually needing to be filtered. And because the water is dirtier here, so maybe we're looking at some form of ruined planet, who knows. He then goes on and you ask him about a damaged screen. He says, "It starts playing videos and music if you put it in a bright spot. I've never seen it aside from the monitor, but I guess that's the colour folks used to call blue." So obviously this, along with the fact that he's not seen Guzzlord's been around since he was born, seems to indicate that it's been a ruin for ages, this planet. Or this area, this island, whatever it might be. It's been around for ages. He's not seen the colour blue, or he's not seen the sea or whatever. He's just seen grey and murky and whatever. And obviously the fact that it's damaged and there's a leaky machine and everything seems to indicate that this was, an abandoned area or a ruined area for a while. You can ask him about his suit as well, and he said, I heard that back in the day, people would spend a lot of time every day worrying about what to wear, which is, obviously just referencing general living. Things are much less complicated now since the only choice is this suit. Breathe too much of the air around here without the suit and it can be very dangerous. Actually, you may want to keep breathing to a minimum if you're going outside. So again, this indicates that we're on some sort of ruined planet or dangerous planet where the air is toxic, or the air is at least dirty, that you don't want to breathe too much of it. Moving on, you can ask him about those cards. Now, I'm not sure what these cards are, but I think it's just stuff that's lying around. He said, oh, those. Each little card is a storage device. They can hold a huge amount of information. All the data in the world could fit on one bookshelf, but the machine used to read them is broken, so they're not much use now. So this is something like some form of technology, but what intrigues me is the fact that all the data in the world can fit on one bookshelf. So currently that can't be done in real life or indeed in the Pokemon world, so it might indicate that we're in some sort of futuristic setting where you have advanced technology that has been able to store lots of data in one single place. You can also talk to him about a faded sign. Apparently that sign is from an older era than the rest of the rubble around here. It's a bit sad I can't read all of it, but it's just so rusted. It must have been placed in an area that was rough on metal or something. So this is an interesting one. The sign is just obviously outside around by Guzzlord, and you can't really read much of it. But from what he tells you, again, it's obviously from maybe before he was born or just an older era, as he says, but it's all rusted. So it must have been placed there that was rough on metal. So rough on metal indicates the fact that you rust. So metal tends to rust because of air. For a start, rust straight away from air, but it's generally oxygen that actually rusts metal, so of course air helps that. But the other cause of it is water, because water has oxygen inside it. So this might indicate that the sign was from an area near water, which of course might indicate next to the sea. Again, namely Howley City. And finally, you can ask him, what do Guzzlord eat? He says, blah blah, eating everything, etc. Well, he doesn't actually say that, but basically just eat everything. But he also says they have a huge appetite, so we couldn't take them to the other planets. Oh, please don't mess with me as Mr. Glutton's food out back. So of course, this is just referencing the fact that Guzzlord eat a lot. But the interesting thing here is, of course, because he said they couldn't take them to the other planets. So again, this indicates that we're in some sort of futuristic timeline where they have spaceships and can travel between planets, and thus that's why Guzzlord can't go, because Guzzlord will destroy the planet. So, culminating this all together, it seems to be that this is a future timeline of Alola. So, maybe 100 years, 200 years in the future, where there are Guzzlords. We would imagine that the Guzzlords caused the ruining of the planet, because they eat a lot, maybe that's the reason why. But, obviously, for some reason, either Guzzlords do it or it just happens anyway naturally. The planet gets ruined, the air becomes slightly more toxic. Maybe the seas dry up because he hasn't seen the colour blue, or the seas become murky and have to be purified to be able to drink, to be able to be drinkable. And generally, stuff goes downhill, maybe because of the Guzzlords, maybe because of something else. But then, of course, they are in some sort of technologically advanced society, so they can store lots of data on a bookshelf, or they can create spaceships to travel to other planets because the Earth has been ruined. So that's the whole assumption there. As I said, whether Guzzlord actually is the reason why or not, who knows? It's possible, but Guzzlord, he eats a lot, he doesn't cause a lot of damage. However, you could sort of extend the sort of explanation of Guzzlord and say, right, okay, he eats a lot, but what does he do with his rubbish? Does he, maybe he just craps it out, and obviously that's not making the air toxic, for example. Maybe they're actually toxic Pokemon. Of course, they're not poison types, they're dark dragon types. But that's the reason. Looking at its Pokedex entries from Sun and Moon at least, we're told it's gobbled mountains and swallowed whole buildings. But it appears to be eating constantly, but for some reason its droppings have never been found. So it doesn't actually produce droppings, as most animals and creatures would do. So you could take it further and say, well, maybe Guzzlord excretes in terms of gas, hence why the air is toxic, and now the seas maybe are toxic too because they absorb the air. That's one explanation there you could definitely think about. Without any more sort of, information about that, we can't really tell much, but we can assume that the Guzzlords have, for some reason, caused this world to go downhill. Now, the other thing to talk about is the fact that, obviously, if we're in Howley City, there's no power plant there, or any sort of factory building that we see here. So where does that come from? Well, we're going to take this idea and we're going to link it to something else. So, if Guzzlords have been in this world, where did they come from in the first place? If we're assuming this is Guzzlord's home world, because in the end, Ultra Beasts are just Pokemon from a different world. If we're assuming it's the home world, then why exactly is it? Is it? Where did they come from? What are they doing? Are they just Pokemon that evolved naturally? Well, thinking about Harley City in general, we also have Alolan Muk in this city, and we know Alolan Muk along with Alolan Grimer like to eat a lot of trash. They eat a lot. They use the sort of the recyclers for Alola, and maybe because they eat a lot and Guzzlord eats a lot, this could be linked. Linking back into the power plant idea and the fact that there is no ruined building like this in Howley City, it's possible to think that the power plant being created on Melee Island next to Howley City has something to do with Guzzlord, and maybe to do with Guzzlord's creation itself. So obviously when you think of power plants affecting Pokemon or people in general, you think of course of nuclear. We have plenty of stories in the real world where people have been mutated, or at least children have been mutated, thanks to nuclear energy. So it's not a huge step to think, well, maybe there was a nuclear power plant built on Melee Island, there was some form of meltdown, and this caused Alolan Muk to mutate towards Guzzlord. Now, of course, this mutation wouldn't be instant, it's not like you just suddenly get yourself a Guzzlord, but it could have been, the fact that there might have been a Grimer egg that mutated, or something along the lines, and maybe over time, Guzzlord was created. That's one theory that's doing the rounds currently. The other theory, of course, is just this is Guzzlord's homeworld. It's been here for a long time, and eventually the world went to ruin, or has always been in ruin, or something like that. The other theory as well is that this is an Alola where you did not stop the Ultra Beasts. So the Ultra Wormholes were opened up, Ultra Beasts flooded in from wherever their homeworlds are, and of course Guzzlord came through and started eating everything up, and eventually they had to abandon the world because Guzzlord was eating everything. That's another idea, which of course doesn't solve the fact that this would be Guzzlord's homeworld. For all the other Ultra Beasts, you seem to be visiting their home world. We have, of course, Nihilego's homeworld we've seen already. You have Pheromosa's sort of Ultra Desert. You have Xurkitree's Ultra Plant. There are plenty of worlds there that seem sort of suited exactly for the Ultra Beasts. So if we assume it's the same with Guzzlord, this must be where it originated, and if it's going to originate on Alola somehow, Alolan Muk seems like a very good idea, or a very good point for it to emerge from. That's the sort of theory or the idea behind Guzzlord currently, so I want to know what you guys think, because we got some information. As is always with Pokemon, we have to extrapolate the rest ourselves, so let me know down below in the comment section what you think. Do you think that Guzzlord is a mutated Alolan Muk that was caused by a power plant explosion or something like that? Do you think it's just a Pokemon from this world of Alola that has just evolved over time? Or do you think of something different in terms of Guzzlord's origin? Let me know down below in the comment section what you think and where it's come from, as well as what you think this world is in general. Is it like a advanced society like 10 years in the future of our Alola, or is it 100 years in the future, or whatever? Let me know down below in the comment section what you think exactly, and if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. But for now, this is going to be it for today, so I shall see you next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, my friends.